It is a time of blood, of ritual, of war. Gods walk among the tribes, each hungering for the devotion that gives them form. Many they may be, but which will endure the ages above all others. Welcome to the How to Play from Mezo. Here you will learn how to play this area control game along with some of your friends. Oh, did I say friends? Maybe for now. Soon you will control a god and tribe of warriors, shamans, and a champion who you will lead to victory over those you call friends now. Let's get the game set up so you can begin your reign of dominance over the others. We will discuss setting up a game for 3 to 4 players for the moment. Place the game board on the table. This board contains the lands in which you will exert your control. Place the age marker so that it shows the first age on the corresponding space of the board. Time has to begin somewhere. The first age seems like the right place. Shuffle the 6 conflict tiles and place them face down on the corresponding space of the game board. Reveal the top conflict tile to determine the desolate region, and then place a desolate region marker in that region and return that conflict tile to the box. If you are only playing a 3-player game, then you can either find a 4th person in which to dominate, or you can repeat the process to create a second desolate region. Now add an altar token to all regions of the board that do not contain a desolate region marker. Take 1 wrathful god tile for each age and place them face down on the corresponding space of the board. Now it is time to decide your fate, and by fate I mean tribe that you will lead. Each player selects a tribe and takes the corresponding miniatures, champion ring, god ring, tribe board, pyramid pieces, glyphs, devotion markers, tribe board markers, action markers, and scoring marker. Each player places their devotion marker on 0 of their tribe board. You will need to earn this devotion. Finally, each player places 1 shaman and 1 warrior miniature in Jobalba on the game board. Now it's time for a game of chance. Take the scoring marker from each player and randomly reveal one. They have won the game. Not really, it's not that easy. Place that player's marker on the 5 victory point position of the victory point track. The next player clockwise places theirs on the 4, and so on until all players have placed their marker. Now the player with the least starting victory points, yes, you, selects a god and takes the miniature, reference card, and god action cards as well for their selection. Then place their god ring on the base of the miniature. Continue clockwise until all players have selected their god. Now the player with the least victory points will select a champion and place their champion ring on the base of that miniature. Again, continue clockwise until all players have chosen a champion. Return any unused components back to the game box. The first age will now begin. Mezo is played over 3 ages. During each age, players will choose an ability for their tribe, deploy their tribe to regions of the board, call their god, and resolve conflicts in the different regions. At the end of 3 ages, the player with the most points will be the winner. Each age is made of 5 steps. You have the start of age, deploy, call, conflict, and end of age. Let's look at each step in further detail. First up is the start of age step. First, you will reveal the wrathful god tile for the current age. Next, starting with the player with the most points, each player selects one of the 3 abilities on their tribe board for that age. This ability will be available for this age and each remaining age. Choose wisely, as this could be your advantage over your opponents. After this, move into the deploy step. This is where your units will take their places on the board, starting with the player with the most points and continuing in victory point order. Each player takes their entire deploy step in full. As a reminder, you cannot deploy units to a region marked as desolate, so don't try. The following rules are to be observed when deploying your units. You must resolve any tribe abilities that must be performed during the deploy step. You can deploy your champion only to a region that currently does not have another champion on it. Your champion may be deployed to a region containing your own units if they are present from a previous age or from a tribe ability. You can deploy up to 3 units in any combination to each region that does not contain your champion. You may deploy units to a region that already has units from a previous age or tribe ability. A player is not required to deploy all of their units to the board. The last player to deploy will also gain the honor of deciding the Blessed region for the age. The Blessed region is the region without a champion in it. Place the Blessed region marker token on top of the token in that region, replacing the reward. We will cover the Blessed region later in this How to Play. Moving on to the call step. This is where players will be calling their particular god. Again, starting with the player with the most points and continuing in victory point order, each player calls their god. As this is the first age, you must call your god to one of the available vertices on the board. Each of these spots borders at least 2 regions, and your god is considered to have presence in each of those regions. We will talk about god action cards a little later, but for now you should be aware that any god action card that does not specify where it must be resolved can only be resolved where your god has presence. In the 2 later ages, this step involves each player moving and using the ability of their god in any order. You must move, however, either before or after using your god's call ability. It's time for war. Okay, actually conflict. As in the conflict step. Now this is where the majority of the game takes place. I hope you are paying attention. First, reveal the top conflict tile from the stack. This will determine the region in which conflict will happen. Provided that region is not the Blessed region, each player will take part in the conflict whether or not their god borders it. Conflict goes as follows. First, each player will draw the top 3 cards from their god action deck. If you have less than 3 available, then draw as many as you can. Select one of the god action cards drawn and place it face down next to your god reference card. Place all remaining cards back on top of your deck in any order. Now each player reveals their chosen card. The player directly to the left of the player whose champion is present in the region begins the conflict by choosing one of the 3 options on their card and mark it with an action marker. Resolve the ability as best you can. Continue in this order until all players have taken 2 actions. In the same turn order, each player with at least 1 glyph placed in the region may elect, if they wish, to sacrifice one of their glyphs from the region, sending it back to their supply, and choose the 3rd option on their god action card. After each player with a glyph has made this choice, it is time to resolve the conflict and determine a winner. A quick note here is that a player may elect to take a pass action instead of one of their god actions if they wish. A player taking a pass action may choose either to gain 1 devotion or recover 1 unit from Shibaba. If you choose to do this, you still must select another action on your card, making it unavailable to select during the remainder of the conflict. The winner of the conflict is the player with the highest total strength, and strength is totaled up according to the following. Champions gain 2 plus any applicable bonuses. You gain 1 strength per glyph in the region, 1 strength per shaman, and 1 strength per warrior, and then any additional strength bonus or tokens you may have gained. The winner of the conflict gains the altar bonus in that region.
But what if there is a tie?
It's a great question. In the event of a tie, the player whose champion is present in that region gets to decide who wins the tie, even if they are not involved in the tie. After determining the winner of the conflict, then it is time to check for the calendar and codex majorities. This is a fancy way of saying who has the most shamans and who has the most warriors, in case you were wondering. The player with the most shamans in the region takes one of their shamans from the conflict and places it on an available space on the calendar and resolve the ability. Now do the same for the player with the most warriors, placing a warrior from the conflict on the codex. Once again, the player with the champion in the region will determine the winner of any ties. At the end of the conflict, all units and the champion are removed from the board and returned to their respective players. Glyphs, however, remain in the region. Move any units that were sacrificed to the wrathful gods to Shobaba. Each player clears the markers from their God action card, and the conflict tile is removed and placed next to the board. We'll repeat this step until all conflict tiles have been revealed. After all conflicts have been resolved, players finish out each age by doing the following. Each player gains 2 victory points for each unit they have on the calendar and codex. Return those units to each player's reserves afterward. Each player gains victory points equal to the current age for each region where they have at least one pyramid. Each player shuffles their God deck and places it face down. Advance the age marker to the next age. Shuffle the conflict tiles face down and place them on the corresponding space of the board. If this is the end of the third age, the game ends and final scoring occurs. Otherwise, continue play to the next age with the start of age step. If this is after the third age and the end of game, then the game ends and the final scoring happens. Each player will gain additional points in the following way. Each player gains victory points equal to the space their devotion marker occupies on their devotion track. Now, the player with the most victory points is the winner, honoring their god throughout the ages. So now you have the basic structure of how a game of Mezo is played. If you wanted to, you could begin playing and check the rulebook and game text as you play, but if you really want to be prepared for a game of Mezo, continue watching so I can teach you more game terms and how things like God action cards work in the game. You still with me? Good. I've recruited a few of the gods of the game to help me with this part. First up, I will let Kukulkan explain to you about God action cards.
Each of us gods have a unique deck in which you will use to harness our awesome power. Each card has 3 options. The third option on each card is called a ceremonial action. It is the same throughout the god's deck, and it contains generally weaker action, but it will allow you to also appease the wrathful god. When you choose to appease, you will gain the action printed on one of the wrathful god tiles that have been revealed, but this requires you to sacrifice one of your tribe. If there are no units on the wrathful god, then you sacrifice only 1 unit from a region where your god has presence or your reserve. If there is already 1 or more units, then the wrathful god demands a larger sacrifice, and you must sacrifice 2 of your units. Let's look at one of my favorite cards in my deck, the Legacy card. The first actions are unique, and the bottom action is the ceremonial action. The first action you are already familiar with, as it allows you to repeat the call step from before that the human teaching you this game told you about. The second action allows you to build in the region where the conflict is happening and to awaken 1 unit into this conflict as well. You see, the build and awaken are more prominent. Build means you will place a part of a pyramid or a glyph in the region. Glyphs are only limited by the number you have in your supply, but pyramids are special. A pyramid can only have at most 4 levels. When adding the first level, use the largest piece you have remaining in your supply. Note this might not be the largest piece in the game and could result in a small overall pyramid being built. However, each subsequent piece must be smaller. If you are adding to an existing pyramid in a region, you must have the correct size available. After placing a pyramid, you score victory points equal to the number of layers in the pyramid. Any other player with a pyramid piece in it also scores 1 victory point. Awaken allows you to move a unit from Shibalba to the region. You may only awaken your own units. My ceremonial action on the card allows you to gain 1 devotion and recover 1 warrior, and appease as you wish. Recover is another keyword. This means to take a unit you have in Shibalba and bring it back to your reserve. I grow tired of talking to you, human. I think it is It's time someone else teach you something.
Okay, so hopefully whatever Cuckoo Khan taught you will be helpful in your first game. Let's see, who should I call upon next to assist you? Cobra Khan, I think, should be able to give you some guidance on game terms you haven't learned yet, and maybe whatever else if he's feeling up to it. Cobra Khan, you're up.
Humans always bothering me. I help you though anyway. Let's see, you already know about appease, awaken, build, call, deploy, recover. So I teach you about exile, smite, and transform. Exile and smite have a similar function in that they will both remove one or more units from the board, but where those units end up after is different. When a unit is exiled, it is returned to the owner's reserve. When smite is used on a unit, they end up in the bad place. The units are sent to Shibaba. Terrible place. You don't want to go there. Transform is an ability that works on glyphs and pyramids. This allows a player to replace a glyph or the topmost portion of a pyramid with one of their own. They gain victory points as if they were using the build action. You can even choose to transform your own pyramid so that you gain the victory points. As long as I am here, I will also talk to you about conflict in the Blessed Region, since no one has yet. Conflict in the Blessed Region is resolved differently than other regions in the game. The Blessed Region is a place where a brief moment of harmony exists between the tribes, and they turn their attention to showing devotion to us gods. Of course, that is through ritual sacrifice. Starting with the player with the most victory points, and then continuing in victory point order, each player chooses how many units in their reserve they wish to sacrifice to their god. Each unit's sacrifice earns 1 point of devotion right away. Each unit sacrificed is also worth 1 point of strength for determining the winner of the region. After each player has made their sacrifices, they determine a winner in the usual way, but also adding in the value of the sacrificed units. The winner gains 8 victory points. If there is a tie, then the player with the lowest score currently wins the region. Calendar and Codex are not rewarded for the Blessed Region. The sacrificed units at the end of the conflict are sent to Xibalba. Did I mention it is a terrible place? Speaking of gaining victory points, I don't think anyone has explained to you that when gaining victory points, you cannot occupy the same space on the track as another player. If moving forward places you in the same space as another, then move forward to the next available empty space. Okay, I am tired now. Please go away.
Little rude there at the end, but what can I expect from a god? Still, some great information though, and I hope you paid close attention. Let's see if Ishel and Aphuk have anything to add before you venture off for your first game of Mezo.
Well, it seems like these players have been prepared, even if they haven't bothered to ask for our guidance before now.
Humans, what can you do? We should still offer them a little help before they depart to destroy each other.
You are right, of course. During this teaching, you have been learning as if you will be playing with 3 or 4 players. There are some changes in order to play a game of Mezo with only 2 players. Aphuk and I frequently play this way.
You mean when I beat you in Mezo?
Don't make me smite your followers. As I was saying, there are differences in the 2-player game. Please check your rulebook for the setup and gameplay changes. But I recommend playing with 3 or 4 your first time if possible. Anything to add, Aphuk?
Only that they should select me as their god and sacrifice many units to show their devotion.
And I shall grant their new units life.
Thank you for watching the How to Play video from Mezo. I hope it has helped you prepare for your first game. If you have any questions, please check out the Board Game Geek page for the game, or if you are watching during the Kickstarter funding period, check out the comments there. As this How to Play video was made prior to the game's final production, some components and rules may have changed. Please refer to your most recent rulebook for any changes. Some components in this How to Play video were substituted with placeholders to ensure timely delivery of the video. Have fun playing your first game of Mezo.